America's workforce. Its strength is our nation's success. Join Ronnie Spellman on I Build America podcast as we explore innovative solutions and inspiring stories from leaders and workers shaping America. Discover actionable insights to build a motivated workforce.
I build America.
Welcome to the program. I have Maurice Wilson with us today, who flew in from California to join us in person here in Arizona. Welcome out.
Good to be here.
Now, Maurice, I've been with you at various different workforce-related events around the country, and I admire you so much.
Well, thank you.
I admire you so much. I'd love for you to tell me about your position currently, but before you do that, you have 25 years in the military.
In the Navy, yes.
And you have a very distinguished career outside of the military as well. You're kind of a quasi-technology guy. I've been in one of the sessions with you where you're talking about technology and all this fancy items to help with workforce.
I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I just went all over the radar screen.
So tell me what you're doing now. What position are you?
So right now I hold a couple of positions. One is as the founder and co-director of National Veterans Transition Services, a.k.a. REBOOT, which the focus there is on transition and reintegration. That's a whole story within itself. I'm a board member or advisory member for Call of Duty Endowment.
Oh, wow.
And, they make the video game Black Ops.
Right.
I've been serving as an advisory member since its inception in 2009.
Okay.
I'm also on the board of advisors for Working Nation.
Okay.
And again, Working Nation, we are focused on everything related to jobs and employment. I'm one of the co-founders for the California Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, fantastic!
We started that about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And the goal there, again, that's another story. The goal there is to help identify the many veteran business owners that California has. California has somewhere over like 230,000 veteran business owners. And one of the areas that we're looking at, or have been looking at, is A, how do we document them? And then B, how do we set up sort of like a entrepreneurial exchange where most of the individuals are getting ready to age out of the system because they're in their like 60s and 70s. So they've been business owners for a while, but they're ready to get out of the business and just either turn over to their kids or sell it somewhere else.
Sure.
And so we're looking at setting up we call it a retained equity program, seller retained equity program, where the current business owner can get matched with a transitioning service member who's interested in becoming a veteran entrepreneur, get into some mentorship, and hopefully into an agreement, a legacy agreement there.
Sure.
So we're working with that. I'm also a board member for it's a CDFI, Community Development and Financial Institution.
Okay.
It's called Founders First, CDC.
Right.
Again, we do a lot of support for veteran-owned businesses across the country, if you will.
That is amazing. I've been
And there's one more.
Yeah, there's one more, okay.
There's one more. And it seems like this one more actually takes up more of my time than anything else.
Right.
I'm also the first vice president for the San Diego Veterans Coalition.
Okay.
And I've been in this position for at least 5 years, and it's a volunteer role. And it's sort of like a chamber in itself, but it's all volunteer.
Sure.
Mostly all veteran service organizations combining assets and resources, creating this universal holistic exchange. If we, and spend a lot of time with that.
Wow.
I think that's it.
It sounds like you've made your next life's journey post-retirement from the military and doing for other service members and helping other service members. So I want you to tell me why that is and how that happened. But before you do, I've been active with the DFW Chamber of Commerce in Texas. And I met a young man not long ago, and in a story that broke my heart. So you might have some understanding of this. He's now the president of a company, and he took it over from a veteran who developed the company. And I asked him, how did that come about? And I didn't expect what I received in that conversation. He mentioned that veteran owner built a good company, was doing well in the company, but the veteran was still struggling with his period of time in the military and ended up taking his own life. And it broke my heart to hear that this veteran who had made it, right? He had his own business and was successful, but was still struggling with that transition.
That's not unusual.
That's kind of why I asked the question, because it sounds like it isn't.
So in the simplest terms, and again, that's really what got me into this particular industry was the plight of transitioning service members getting out and still not finding purpose, identity, and where they fit. The suicide rates were pretty high back then. They're still high now. Homelessness was bad then. It's bad now. Underemployment, all of those things, they all existed. And that's what drove me to start this organization, which is, what could we do to prevent suicide, to mitigate homelessness and underemployment? And that's the whole, I guess you could call it, creation of REBOOT, which is stands for Reverse Boot Camp. And the idea being is that, and here's where it makes a difference, Ronnie. When you join the military, in order for you to transition into the position, you have to transform yourself, your consciousness. So as you're transforming your consciousness, you're now becoming somebody different than what you were prior to the military. In fact, you're becoming what the military wants you to become. And you are instantly given three things that really changes your whole world. You're given a new, now think about this, you're given a new identity, you're given a new purpose, and you're given a career instantly. Now, contrast that to an individual who didn't have anything, and they were seeking to find themselves and define themselves, and they just couldn't figure it out. Coming in the military, you get that instant identity. I mean, it's almost like instant. Within 8 weeks, you've been transformed. Now, and forevermore, that journey goes on. Now, that's a good thing, and it's necessary for you to function within the structure of the military. However, again, whenever you change something, within somebody, if you don't change it back to something else, they're going to keep doing what they're doing because that's what they've been programmed to do. So that behavior, it has been programmed in. I actually have a class. It's like a one-day class that I give that I explain that. And it's like a big eye-opener for a lot of people because, until you see it, you don't see it. But when you see it and you understand that, so that's why I'm struggling. I said, well, let's really kind of address your biggest need. What's your biggest need when you're getting out of the military? Well, getting out of the military, you have to replace the identity because you're losing your military identity. That's going away. You got to find your next purpose in life. What why are you existing? Why what are you going to do tomorrow? Because you no longer have a military mission, and you're losing the occupation that you had in the military, which means you have to replace that. Think about the impact of losing all three of those things: your identity, your purpose, and your career. What do you have?
In an instant.
That you're taking off the uniform. And it's that drastic. You're taking off the uniform today, tomorrow. You're out there without purpose. You're out there without, you have all this capability. You've done magnificent things in the military, but it's not what you can do. It's what you're driven to do, what you want to do. That's a whole different thing.
Hi, so you're the president and executive director for the National Veterans Transition Services.
Yes.
Headquartered in San Diego. How did that get started? I know you kind of mentioned yours, but I think you partnered with a really good friend of yours from what I recall.
Yes.
Tell us that story because I think that part of the story is also valuable.
Well, that's it's part of a journey. When I retired in '98, I personally took the uniform off on a Friday and went to work on a Monday. And I just happened to volunteer a couple of years at the Urban League in San Diego prior to retiring. And when the moment came, they asked me if I wanted to work for them. And I didn't have anything else on the radar, even though I had 26 years, master's degree in telecommunications, bachelor's degree in all that didn't matter. And again, let me just level set for everybody else listening. For all the individuals in the military, it doesn't matter if you have a PhD in this, if you got all these 30 or 40 years in that. That doesn't matter if you don't have a personal reason, purpose in life.
Correct.
All you have is your skills. with nowhere to point that,
Right.
to direct that. So, I got out, joined the Urban League, and everything that happens to us obviously is part of the big plan to lay a foundation for our learning. And as I worked at the Urban League, I first came in to help them with their technology. And interestingly, about 6 months into the job, they offered me the position as the director for workforce development. And, me being Navy, being military, sure.
Right.
What do you want next? And, again, for me, it was easy to step up to the plate and really evolve in the job, because that's what we do. You give us a mission,
Yes.
and we evolve the mission. And so, I took that mission to the highest possible level. And then in 2009, like everyone else, I'd been there for 10 years, and it was time to move on. You know how you grow out of something,
Right.
where you can't learn anymore?
Right.
I had reached that point where I really couldn't learn anymore there, and I needed to do my own thing. And that's where I got the tap on the shoulder to join the Call of Duty Endowment.
Okay.
And so this was in July of 2009. I got tapped and asked if I, would like to be on this workforce advisory board that's funded and supported by Call of Duty to help veteran organizations across the country get funding. Okay. And so that's what we did then, and that's what we do now.
Now, don't lose your place on that, but for many people that were not in their working career in 2009, there is also a lot happening in the world. I was working in home building, in fact, in California. We're in the middle of a housing and financial crisis.
Yes.
A lot of people being laid off from work. There's a lot of instability around the globe relative to jobs and finances and people losing homes. And so I presume that in that 10-year period, you were probably really busy in that 2006, 7, 8, 9 era. I can only imagine what it was like having to serve all the needs that were coming through in San Diego. In fact, in our home building operation, when we looked across the region, San Diego was among the first hit from what we saw in slowing sales. Mm-hmm. And so I can't imagine what you were seeing at that time.
Well, what we were working on, because I was at the Urban League then, diversity, equity, and inclusion, those were like really big, people tapping into these markets. Now, remember, San Diego has always been a big defense community.
Right.
And so you got shipbuilders, you got aviation area, so they're always looking, if you will. Right. And one of the things that I had noticed then, and I even notice now, is that the region itself had never really found a way to take advantage of the military talent that it had there.
Right.
And it was just, to me, that was a puzzle or an equation to be solved.
So tell me more on that, because again, most might not understand in San Diego, that Southern California area, not too far different from the Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia area, huge concentration of military personnel and a huge concentration of veterans, right?
So it's the largest concentration of military in the
San
country.
Diego, right?
Because you got San Diego, you got all the naval bases, you got the Marine Corps in Camp Pendleton,
right?
And so we have the largest population. The annual revenues alone generated by the military defense industry, $56 billion annually.
Wow!
I mean, it's huge. But you have each year you have roughly 18,000 people transitioning out just in that region alone.
Wow, that's huge.
Which you would have imagined the regional workforce entities and everyone would have been able to figure out how to tap into that, how to create sort of like a smooth exchange that says, oh, we got all these people getting ready to get out. Hey, let's get access to them. Let's assess their skills to find out what they're interested in, and let's start filling all of our different interests. San Diego has roughly 24 industries that it's supporting. It has roughly 6 key sectors that are high growth areas. And as I looked at that again, to me, that was another puzzle to be solved. Like, okay, we should be able to do this. Now, several other studies have taken place, and one just recently, last year by USC, University of Southern California. What they found was that of the transitioning service members in the area, 66% were leaving the military without a job.
Oh, gosh.
So, again,
67%?
66%.
66%.
Let's,
Wow.
So 66% of 18,000 leaving the military without a job.
That's a lot.
So again, there was something going on, and apparently you can't look at what's obvious. You have to look at what's not obvious.
Right.
Why? Whose responsibility is it to do that?
Right.
And that's been the big struggle for many, many years. Most folks haven't really answered the question. I think I finally solved the equation.
Okay.
And it came in the area of a study that was done a year before last in 2023 by the Council on Criminal Justice.
Right.
And they were looking at veteran incarceration. But in order for them to look at the veteran incarceration, they had to look at the workforce piece to find out what's missing and what's going on, what's wrong, what's broken. And they said, well, you got all these people who have all these careers. They're getting, they've been trained by the military. They have a skill. They should be able to get out and get a job doing that. And I had to finally make sure that they all understood that, but there's one piece of data that you have to look at. Mm-hmm. And if you don't look at the data, and if you don't address it, then you'll never ever solve this equation. You'll keep what's the definition of insanity?
Right.
You keep doing the same old thing, expecting a different result, and you'll keep getting the same result, and you don't understand why.
Right.
But the data simply says that 80% of all transitioning service members across the board annually, we're talking 200,000. 80% want to have a complete career change.
Wow.
They don't want to, in other words, they don't want to do what they did while they're in the Navy or in the military.
Right.
Now, 20%, 15 to 20%, they're fine with it. The vast majority do not want to do that.
Right.
And you can't make them.
Right. Right.
And so you have to apply some other factors. But right now, the way the system is behaving, the system is saying, well, just do what you did while you're in the military. And so now you look at some more data. The Henry Jackson Foundation, Korn Ferry, several others have done some studies, McKinsey and Company. And what they've all found is that, there's some underlying issues like, let's say the transition service members who get out and get a job. What they're experiencing is like a 28% cut in pay. So now we have a 61% underemployment of veterans out there.
Okay. That is unfortunate. Now, what's neat, part of the reason I wanted you on the program is you are an expert in workforce development. You've been doing it for a while. You understand especially the military and veterans, but I think you have a bigger global understanding of workforce, using almost veterans as an opportunity to understand, like from a case study perspective.
Yeah.
But you're doing something really innovative. I think the rest of the country can learn from what you're doing as a sample of how to address workforce, whether organizations are working with people coming out of incarceration or people coming out of urban areas or people coming out of high school without the college track, or even people coming out of college. I think your approach could be used in some of these other workforce areas. But you're really, I think, the future of workforce development. What are you doing from that angle? Like what kind of tools? You don't have to give all of your secrets, but what can you say to help the rest of the country figure out what's worked from your several decades of doing this now?
So I think the first thing that I started doing was looking at what works. You always have to, you can't come in with your idea. You need to look at, is there a best practice at what's working? And what I tell people, if you look at the military and the military system, it's working.
Right.
The military has the best workforce readiness program on the planet.
Yes.
Now, you could argue that, recruitment is down. That's a whole nother factor.
Correct.
We're not talking about recruitment. We're talking about workforce development. Because, again, if you look at the military as a industrial complex with multiple key areas that they need to fill occupational positions, they have to have a structure that prolongs that and extends that. And so the way they do it is pretty straightforward. The process of coming in, the test that they administer, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with what they call the ASVAB,
right?
Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Exam. what it does, it has a specific purpose. And this is, to me, this is the brilliance of it.
Yes.
They're focusing not on, whether or not you like the job. It's all about whether or not you have the aptitude for me to teach. So they do it in 2 stages. Now, we don't do the 2-stage approach in the civilian sector.
Correct.
Only the military does the 2-stage approach. Stage 1,
Okay.
Actually, I could say three stages.
Sure.
Stage 1 is test for aptitude. And aptitude, what does that mean? That just means that if I train you, you can do it. Period.
Right.
That's all it means.
Right.
Doesn't mean you got to like it. You have to like it. You want it. You need. If I train, you can do it. That's number 1. Number 2, they train on behavior.
Right.
So now they already got one factor out of the way.
Right.
Now the other one, they have to solve this other equation, which is, okay, now I have to address your attitude and your behavior. So now what differentiates the military from the civilian sector? They have this little document. It's called the UCMJ.
Okay.
Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Yes.
And what it does, it regulates behavior on how you should act
Right.
in normal working conditions in the military.
Right.
So it's, A, we got the document that tells you how to act, and then B, you have boot camp that teaches you how to act.
Right. Right.
So the military doesn't take guesses on, whether or not you're going to fit. They're going to show you how.
Right.
So again, it's a smooth process. We test you. We tell you where you're going to work. We don't always ask you where you're going to work. We tell you, okay, you tested really good. We need this. You're going to go there.
Sure.
Problem solved. And then from there, it's like a straight shot. And then after that, okay, into boot camp for behavioral enculturation training. Directly after that, you get your skills training. You're on a job.
Wow.
Perfect.
Right.
And when I looked at that, I said, so why aren't we just, as civilians, reverse engineering that?
Interesting.
That would make so much sense if we had like a reverse boot camp, understanding how it works.
Right.
But now the formula is different, though, in that you can't count on, let's say, the industry saying what they want the person to do. You have to flip it over to the individual has to say what they want to do. That's the changeover.
Right.
In the military, we tell you what you're going to do. But as a civilian, when you have to choose. So the system right now does not have a good mechanism in place for individuals to choose what they want. And that's why we don't have a lot of people getting jobs, getting out. Because again, the vast majority, I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
And we're saying, well, tell us what you want to do. You could choose anything.
Right.
And most of the, military are looking at you like you stole something. Like, I don't know.
How do you bring them to that point? Because now they have to self-select. Instead of being told, they have to begin to figure out who they are.
Yes.
And through that, what they want to do, right?
You just answered the question.
Okay.
So that means that you have to have or devise a system and a process to help them self-define what they're doing. Now, remember, you got to go back to what I mentioned earlier. The military gives you 3 things: identity, purpose, and a career.
Right.
You just gave me the answer.
Yeah.
You have to find your identity. You have to create a new identity, create a new purpose, and you have to find your next career.
Wow.
The average person can't do it. So how do we solve that equation? Well, first we had to recognize and understand it. We did that. But then we knew we needed tools to help with that. So the first one we looked at was, okay, boy, this is complex. How do we solve it?
Right.
Well, we don't wait until the last minute.
Right.
So what we did was we looked at what we call the transition timeline, and we showed, okay, what's the window of when the person is getting ready to get out? When should we engage, and when should we begin the reassessment, the testing, the training to get the person to start selecting? Because at that particular point, in this timeline, depending on when the person is getting out, you have up to 2 years while the person is still on active duty. So it's like a concurrent thing.
Right.
You have up to 2 years to work with them to help them figure out what they want to do, help them define it, narrow it down, pinpoint it, and begin moving on that journey while they're still serving and getting ready to get out. You got to run on 2 tracks at the same time.
Wow.
So what we did was we developed an app that helps them manage it. We call it the Managing Your Transition Timeline app.
Okay.
That was designed to be like a personal project management tool for the individual that says, look, and we had to change the whole thought perspective, the whole consciousness that, and oh, by the way, your transition is your responsibility, not the military's.
Right.
Because everybody put it on the military. They said, the military's not doing enough. The VA's not doing this. And, finally we had to tell them it's not their job.
Right.
For you have to figure out what you want to do. It's not up to the VA. The VA is going to make sure you have your benefits.
Right.
Uncle Sam's going to make sure you get the time off, but you have to drive the bus.
Right.
And so, again, when we developed the app was designed to help kind of self-manage the person, using automation and technology.
Sure.
And so it calculates when the person's getting out. You got X number of days. You got all these things you need to do. It's like a personal digital assistant. That was the first one.
Yeah.
But then there were several other things we had to do along the way, which is now you got to go on the inside and you have to change the person's consciousness.
Okay.
And that's where what we call the Reboot Workshop comes in.
Gotcha.
And so the Reboot Workshop, which again, no one else has been able to replicate what we're doing in the 15 years, it's the civilian version of boot camp. It's a reverse boot camp.
That is incredible. What's cool about the concept is even though the person has to take responsibility for their future, you're still giving them a tool to help them get through it. And I think that's key, not just completely leaving them on their own to figure it out.
Right.
You're saying you've
got
some figuring out to do,
Yes.
but here's some structure to help you through that process.
Yeah, you have to show them how you know how some people tell you what you should do?
Right.
You can't tell them what to do. That never works. You got lots and lots of people out there. They will tell you what to do. Read this book.
Right.
No, show me.
Right.
People do better when you show them. When you enable them. So again, that's how I say that's our superpower. We enable them. We give them the tools to be enabled, and you could see their mental level of anxiety go down.
Diminish. That's fantastic. Now here you have a 97% success rate.
Oh yeah.
How's that even possible?
Well, because again, it's all
That's
straight.
huge.
It's
Yeah.
You know why it's possible, Ronnie? Because it's science.
Right.
We just talk and deal with straight science. People are predictable.
Right.
Okay. People are programmable. That's why the military does what it does all the time, because the success rate in the military is like 98%.
Yeah.
If you come in and you get past all of the assessments and all that, once you're in the system, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna graduate.
So you know what's interesting in that comment, though? I hear so many people say that they're unique. Like their story is so different. I'm different as a person, which is true, but I think they lack perspective on the commonalities. And what I just heard you say is, in the end, we're really all much the same. And that some of our motivation is very similar, right? Even though we might come from different parts of the country, different families, different challenges. But in the end, oftentimes what motivates us is what you described. Let me walk you through this. Here's what you need to do. You kind of understand their mindset, which is like the military testing. If you understand their mindset, you figure out what they need in their next journey, right?
Well, right. In fact, we and this stuns them all the time. When they go through our workshop, one of the first things we tell them is, instead of saying you're unique, we tell them you're perfect.
Yeah.
Blows their mind every time. Oh, nobody's perfect. And I said, well, let me explain what I mean.
Right.
And what I mean by perfect is that you are a perfect input-output system. That's how you were designed.
Absolutely.
Information from the outside world comes in, you process it, and then you respond.
Right.
You do it perfectly.
Right.
And again, it's predictable. Everything about human beings is predictable.
Right.
Everything is we calculate everything.
I love it.
So we play on that, and we got to flip it around and get them to be engaged and responsible, and then get them into the decision tree of, okay, now let's solve the three questions. It's like the 3-question problem. Let's solve the identity issue. Let's get that out of the way. Let's solve the purpose thing, and then let's solve the career thing. Right. That's our objective, is to solve those 3 things using the technology and the tools that we have. Right. Once we've solved it, then the person is actually on more of a normal pathway.
Nice.
They're relaxed. They're beginning to figure out. They're beginning to get engaged. They're not freaking out or stressing out, because now they have a clear picture of what's going on.
Right. So you are doing a lot to help people starting in San Diego, and I think so much of what you're doing could have an impact across the country. So I want you to end with telling anyone listening to the program how you believe the future for workforce development will look. But before you do that, I know that you were listed as one of the 500 influential business leaders in San Diego, and you're listed as a Veteran of the Year. What you've been able to achieve and accomplish, I want people to understand that you are truly an expert in what you do. But not only are you an expert because you think about concepts, you're an expert because you've implemented successful concepts. You're not just one talking about it. And if there's anything I can say to anyone listening, come up with good ideas, implement and execute good ideas. 97% success rate speaks for itself. But what would you leave everyone in understanding how we can continue to build the best workforce development operation in the world?
Well, let me just make a comment about, the 500 influential business leaders now. That's all good stuff there.
Yeah.
I think the one recognition, and I don't do this for recognition,
Right.
but the one that if I were to kind of like hang on and say, I kind of like that, was in 2011 being recognized as a White House champion of change.
Wow.
And, for me, that was important, because, again, President Obama, and I remember going to Washington, D.C., to the Pentagon. It was around August 2011. And to talk about reboot, like, hey, look, we need to change how we're doing things. We have a boot camp coming in. We need a boot camp coming out. So, boom, there. I kind of gave it to everybody. Here's how we do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember then at the time, the director, Mr. Campbell, only gave me like a 30-minute window because, usually when you're doing those meetings, they give you like a 30-minute window, like, get him in, get him out. But when I presented the concept, he extended it a little bit longer. He said, "Oh, this guy's onto something. Let's talk about this. We need a reverse boot camp." Because that was the point that I was making. I said, "Look, the military is so good at what it does.
Right.
Okay, we invest, and think about it, Ronnie. We invest multi-millions of dollars into training people to be the best at what they are.
Right.
You don't just let them walk out the door without some conversion.
Right.
And that was my argument. Like, we need a reverse boot camp, and it impressed him. And this was on a Wednesday when I met with him. By Friday, it was like and I still have the memo. The memo made its way to the White House, got to the president.
Wow.
And on that Friday, that's when President Obama went on the news and said, "Hey, we need a reverse boot camp." And I was like, they got it.
You made it to the White House. That's fantastic.
And so again, it was the whole concept was they got it. Okay, this thing is going to really take off.
Right.
And shortly thereafter, they sent a whole team of people out. I mean, we had folks from VA, from the Pentagon. I mean, they were all coming in, watching everything that we're doing. Because at that time, if you remember, the Military Transition Assistance Program was taking a beating.
Right.
Because they were like, hey, it's not working. We need something different.
Right.
What's out there? And they came out and they really, they sat in our classes and our workshops. A lot of the undersecretaries came and visited us, sat in the classroom. All of that was good on one hand, but not on the other hand.
Right. Right.
On one hand, there was this awareness of here's what we need to do as a country.
Right.
We need a plan. On the other side, there were the unchangeable minds that says, no, we just need to do it this way.
Right.
And I don't have to tell you what won.
Right.
The unchangeable minds won.
Right.
As opposed to let's change. And it didn't take much. And so let me just say my final message is, and it still doesn't take much.
Right.
We've demonstrated that.
I love it.
What we just need are open minds that see this. And we're even saying you don't even need to give us any money. The money's already there. You just need to give us the time.
Wow.
Just give us the time.
That's incredible.
And again, and then finally, whose responsibility is it?
Right.
Well, after all these years, after the whole 15 years, I finally figured that question. I got an answer for that question. The responsibility for the workforce retraining of all of our veterans rests on the community itself.
Interesting.
The community that is coming home to. Now, where do we go from here? We need to start developing what we call veteran reintegration policies. To this day, we do not, on a national level, we do not have a veteran reintegration policy. Without that.
So I think your point there, and from what I hear, is sometimes we can't necessarily wait for a directive from the White House. We've got to do it across the country, starting in our communities, and do exactly what you did. So not a top-down, even though you need the support, but a bottom-up. Our communities need to say, we need an initiative like Maurice has down in San Diego to make sure that our veterans, our other community members are getting the training and resources they need so that we can remain competitive in this country from a workforce development standpoint.
And we're now taking that message to city mayors.
Good.
So city by city, mayor by mayor, if that's what it takes,
Right.
that's where we are right now.
Wonderful. I am so proud to have you on the program. I appreciate
you.
you flying in from San Diego and us being able to spend this time together.
My pleasure.
Yep, and
Thanks for having me.
I value what you're doing because you don't need to do this. You're retired. You've given your career and your life to serving our country and to serving our community. But I appreciate that you're still in the game trying to make a difference.
You know how they say, I found my purpose.
You found your
That's
purpose.
the one thing that people look for after the military. You know,
Right.
what are you here for? What's your purpose? I got it, and I'll do it forever.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for listening to the I Build America podcast. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and be sure to join us next time for more insights and inspiring conversations on building a powerful American workforce. I Build America, building workforce success one podcast at a time.
I build